by the
He's
120
just down
mile
the
weekend.
road.
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys
he's
call
right
him.
by you. Go knock on his door.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave Frank alone, but I'm just saying. What were we
So
talking about?
when it comes to the we're talking about more of like a blend of training and a progression,
Oh yeah.
going into whatever your specific goal is. How do you guys feel about how mileage? This is a good way to blend that in here. How do you feel as though mileage builds into that too over the course of a season? And
Are you guys mileage guys? Do you assign stuff in mileage?
I do. Yes.
it depends. Whatever it's more of like it depends on what it is. It's for some workouts I'll do minutes, but
So I
some
mean,
I'll
Yeah,
like
do
day to
workouts will
day,
do minutes and fartleks and stuff, but day to day stuff is all miles. 4,
yeah, same.
5,
you
6.
guys
Yeah.
are true roadies.
I wish I could transition all my athletes into minutes and time, but I think there might be a collective revolt
Yeah.
Yeah,
on
I
that.
started that way. I'm fairly certain there's probably like 2 people that didn't work with me because I refused to do my but I mean, especially like if you're doing any type of elevation or trail stuff, it is so pointless and we can't track anything off mileage.
Yeah. I'll pretty much only do minutes for the athletes who have the history of running collegiately or, in the sub elite category of things. I just find that if I assign someone like a 30-minute run sometimes and it could be less than 3 miles, I'm just like, I don't love that. I'd rather it be in miles. I'd rather give them 3 or 4 or 5 miles than, have them go run a 30-minute run.
I guess that I mean also I have athletes that have a very big range of because I have people who giving them 5 miles could take an hour, and then there's people that it could be 33 minutes for. So
Yeah.
I think that's also why I'm very on the time train.
I think it really just depends on like, I mean, if you said, hey, like I'm gonna give you 2.5 hours, Will, like in some instances, like I mean, you could be running 24 miles. Like that's a long, like you could be running for a long, like that's a long way versus 2.5 hours for someone else could be 10 or 12 miles. And if depending on what you're training for, I don't love to only have them run 10 or 12 miles.
Well, then you have to adjust that load accordingly. But what I tell everyone, and I'll tell you guys now, is physiologically, our body doesn't recognize distance. So, if like fueling purposes, it doesn't care if you ran 3 miles or 8. Certain things are going to happen to carbohydrates on a certain interval time, and it doesn't matter how far you went. And the same thing with like, fatigue or like oxidation in our muscles. Like we can kind of pinpoint on average when that happens time wise, but um, there's no correlation to that distance wise. And the same with like an easy day. Like we know about how far we need to run to get an aerobic benefit to where we stop before that muscle oxidation period. And again, that's on a time interval. And the biggest thing is and myself and everyone else is like on those days when you feel really bad, that pace is going to naturally be way slower and you're going to go less far. But when someone's totally wrecked and they're at mile 5.5 and they're like, well, I got to run a half more mile where I'm wrecked because I'm a finisher and I run 6. I'm trying to delete that part from the training of my athletes to where we ran that really crappy half mile so you could hit 6 on your watch. Whereas if you're going for an hour, you were just chilling the whole time and the hour ended earlier, you didn't have to extend that out. That's my
I tried to
pitch.
follow the whole 2.5 hour, rule. Like, hey, you don't need to run more than 2.5 hours, or you kind of get negative effects or whatever. But then I would just find that people would just feel vastly underprepared for the distance that they were training for, like for the marathon. Like it would just not go well. Like there was just the correlation just wasn't there versus having that same person being able to actually build up the somewhat more mileage that's more relevant to the distance.
For sure. I mean, I've never done the 2.5 hour. I mean, obviously, like for some people, like if they're then you kind of get into percentages. Like if you're a 4-hour marathoner, like, yeah, we probably need to do some 3-hour long runs.
Yeah. And obviously you can't do that.
Those loads change for people because some people need a bigger training load because it takes them longer to finish events. But I think that's also really helped me ingrain in my athletes, like the whole easy day, easy. Like I give everyone this whole pitch about just put the time on, don't look at the pace, don't look at the distance, and learn to like listen to your body. and vibe a little bit.
That'd be nice if that was true for everyone. I would love that. That'd be great if I could teach that to every one of the runners that I coach.
Get them off the mileage, man.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
I hard disagree. I think we can be the change we wish to see in the world.
Okay. Nick, thoughts?
I was just gonna say that feels like a good place to stop with
Okay.
that inspiring quote from Will. I mean, in an ideal world, yeah, I would like to have all my athletes and even myself personally work off the time. It's not an ideal world that we live in. I can't create my own world.
Why
I've
can't you run
tried
off time, Nick?
to run off the time, but I'm too neurotic, and it
So then
doesn't
you're
work.
passing that neuroticism on to them?
I'm not passing it on to them. I'm not reflecting my neurotic tendencies onto them. I just know that I think the path of least resistance is to go off of miles, and it's a I mean they're both good ways to track whether it's time or mileage. But gosh, I'm just getting the judgmental looks here from the both of you. But
Will
yeah,
did say that he runs 120 miles a week, not 14 hours and 37 minutes. So
That's
I did
back in the
track my
day.
triathlon training in time. That was the way I tracked that because I think that's the only way you really can, unless you're adding your yards swam to your miles biked and your miles run. So
it's true.
so there is a place for that. But yeah, maybe
The
I
same
am
with
just
biking. Like if you have like a super hilly route, it's like not comparable to if you're
absolutely
flat
no, and
ripping.
I agree that I don't have a lot of trail ultra athletes. Just the nature I think of the platform that I coach on. I don't get a lot of them, and I would coach them based on time versus distance because 6 miles with 1,500 or 2,000 feet of elevation gain is different from 6 miles flat. And you're going to see a huge difference in that stimulus. I mean, I know that for myself when I'm training for ultras that the distance and then the number of miles that I'm doing doesn't really matter as much as the amount of time I'm spending on my feet. And I do agree with Will on all the scientific stuff, the nutritional stuff, and when we're talking about glycogen synthesis and when you run out of glycogen and when you hit the wall, all that stuff is time based and not distance based. A little bit effort based too, which is another reason maybe to understand your correlation of your pace per mile to your correct physiological efforts or whatever. But I'm not sure where I was going with that. I was just kind of
Sounds like you were gassing me up.
well, I think you're right, and I think like again in an ideal world, we would try to train everyone by time, but there is also this like societal, just like the societal expectation or the club that you get from running a marathon. There is this expectation around mileage or
Nobody
the
asked how
number
many
of
miles you ran
kilometers
in the
you ran.
marathon.
No one.
No one asked how many miles you ran in the marathon. Boston doesn't want to know if you ran 26.2. They want to know your time.
Well, things like Strava do exist, and people do want to know the mileage they ran, and they want to be able to show off. And so there
You
are
can't. Go ahead,
so
go
I
ahead.
think the I'm just gonna keep plowing through here. I think like the effort that would be consumed to try to talk all my athletes off of mileage versus just like, hey, let's just work within the confines of the system that we have. I think it's fine. It works for what I'm trying to
Hey,
accomplish.
here's your homework, both of you guys. Start sneaking in a couple 35-minute easy runs to your people.
I do my first week back for everybody is on time, 20 to 30 minutes of easy running for the first week back because I really want the emphasis to be on just spending time on your feet versus trying to get in your 4 miles. But
I do
yeah.
doubles on time. That's what I have people do. So if I have people running multiple times a day, that's on time.
We're getting close.
Right.
Just got to keep that going. Maybe, next Monday, we just throw a regular run. Take that 9 miles away. Give them 70 minutes.
We'll see how
I
it
like
goes.
to I like to do the post race run. I like that to be in time.
30 minutes, super easy. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll have them do a long run. Just depends, like it could be like 90 minutes time on feet.
They
So
all can be.
I don't know if I'll go. I don't know if I'll go. I'll probably get fired by a lot of people if I just impose
It still
time.
tracks it. It's still in there. Bro, I mean that right there is to me is a red. When someone's that way, we have to have a serious. Why is it so important to you that you need to run 40 miles a week? What do you think that does? Who told you that? Would
It's
you
a good
see on
question
the
to ask.
internet?
That's a good question to ask.
Are we trying to be as fast as we can, or do we want a weekly run streak?
That has to be a different conversation.
Are we
You're
running
gonna
for physiological improvement? Or are we running for Strava? Just some questions.
All right,
And on
let's
that note,
let's recap this, Nick. Let's go ahead and crumple this one up and throw it away.
before